You know, the 303 is a simple rifle. It was built at a time where technology was a lot more limited than today. And also was built during a time where resources were more scarce during wars. And the people who did it, the people who made these rifles, figured out a way to just get them done and get them into the hands of the people that needed them, basically soldiers. This video is somewhat like that. As you begin to watch it, you'll see that a lot of the tools I use are not complicated. I did that intentionally. I didn't want to, I mess with power tools all day long, and sometimes it's just nice to use hand tools. But simple times and practical people made this rifle to defend a country and a world at one point. And simple tools, even today, can still get it done. This video isn't meant to be a how-to. It's basically just allowing you to eavesdrop on me, on some of the mistakes I've made and some of the things I do well, or just the way I do things. But this video isn't meant to be an instructional video. I never had that intention. I basically just started doing it because I was bored with the broken rib, and wanted to put it on YouTube so someone could see what I was doing if they were interested. And so it's not meant as an instructional video. If anything, it's maybe inspiration. I don't know, showing you how with simple tools you can do something that makes anything a little bit better, as long as you use the two best tools that you have in your toolbox, and that would be your brain and your hands, the human hands. Two things that'll never get replaced, and using simple tools sometimes can remind you of that. And it also can remind you of how some great people got some great things accomplished just by simply doing it. I hope maybe you pick one of these up yourself and get inspired. This video brings the rifle up to where it is now. You'll see in the video there was a snafu with the filming, but it pretty much gets you up to this point. And I hope you enjoy, and thanks for watching. If you would subscribe, many of you are watching without subscribing. That's fine. It's your prerogative. Nobody's forced to do anything, and I'm glad you're watching at least. But go ahead and subscribe so I get an idea if the editing and everything else that I'm doing is what people want to see. And other than that, enjoy. And don't spend too much time inside. Go ahead and get outside. Thanks. All right, the first thing I did was free float the barrel. And like I said earlier, I did it with simple tools. These were used to gap the barrel from the stock. I know a vise is better, but I use these a lot to hold material. This is Jerry Fisher's scraper. I got this from Midway, and it's an extremely useful tool for scraping out a round barrel channel. Okay, when I first started, I didn't know how far I should gap my barrel from my stock, so I did what everybody else does, and I got on the internet. When I got there, I found out that anywhere between 15 thousandths and 50 thousandths is an accepted gap. I went between that. That first 3x5 card showed you me calculating how much I wanted, and it ended up becoming 32 thousandths of a gap, which is exactly equal to 3 index cards. Yeah, nowhere close to where it needs to be. Alright, so you're going to see where I start taking away some wood. Obviously the first thing to do is disassemble the rifle, get it secured, and then start whittling, basically. There's nothing really to say here. Basically, you just start taking away wood until you can start fitting, or at least I started doing it until I could start fitting those 3x5 cards in there. Mostly it's a lot of scraping, putting the stock back together, and checking the fit. Still nowhere close. There is one thing to say here, and that is that you wouldn't want to scrape too far up on that side of that channel, or else it'll create a larger gap than you want between it and the barrel. So this is the barrel complete. You can see I've got about 3 index card gap between the barrel and my stock. That extra gap right there was caused by that old front sight. I'm not changing it. I'm living with it. Okay, now that I've got the barrel inletted, I'm going to start rounding that forend, and here's the tools I did it with. This is a rasp to trim horse hooves. I got mine from my farrier, but you could pick one up at Tractor Supply. This is a cabinet scraper. They're useful for a smooth finish on any wood, whether it's bows or gun stock or cabinets. What I did here was take a square, make it an octagon, and then round off those last corners. What I'm doing in this picture is laying out and dividing up that stock to get my octagon. The way you do that is figure out your overall width, mark half, and then quarters, and then just file from line to line basically to get an octagon. I don't know if you noticed, but you see that original sling swivel hole? It was off center, and you can see it again here. I questioned myself at first, double checked, and then just drove on. Once I had this octagon, then I went ahead and sanded off these last corners and ended up with a round stock. Some of the wood on this rifle wasn't meeting the metal very well, so I used sandpaper to get a better fit. I bought this chunk of ebony off the internet. You'll see here in a little bit, I should have got more. Alright, in order to fit the ebony, I need the stock, which means I got to tear apart the rifle again. Here I was determining how much ebony I needed. I don't know if there's a rule for forend caps, but 1.5 inches looked pretty clean and even to me. Earlier I'd marked the center of that stock. Right here I'm just measuring to make sure that it's equidistant from the side of that miter box. I use that shim to keep it equidistant and cut it with the top of the stock down because it's square or parallel with the barrel, and the underside of that forend slopes, which would give me an unsquare cut. Here I'm just trying to square up the two sides so I have a very narrow or non-existent glue gap. Then I marked where I was going to drill for the dowel. Alright, my dowel is just an old cedar arrow I have, and matter of fact it doesn't fit, and I use sandpaper to make it fit to reduce its diameter. When I tried to clamp this, the clamp kept sliding around, but eventually I got it and set it aside. I had intended to use that scrap ebony, but I didn't have enough. And then I thought maybe I could use my old military coins, but this one I worked too hard for and it means too much to me. And this one I don't even remember why I got it, and the rest just weren't that nice looking. So I figured I'd move on to the barrel sling band. You're going to see the flaw in that barrel right above that band. That's kind of where, well, it's right where I'm micrometering right now. I want to cover that up. I don't have any mills or any special tools, so I figured I would just wrap sandpaper until I got it the same thickness as the diameter of the barrel where that flaw is, and then I would just start twisting that barrel sling. It worked. It was tedious, and I had to also use a rat tail file, but I eventually got it to fit. Alright, once I marked centers and stuff and got that band to sit where I wanted on the barrel, all that was really left was to tin that barrel band and solder it to the barrel. I'm not sure what to tell you about tinning other than don't get your barrel too hot, make sure it's clean, use good flux, and be patient and heat evenly. I believe when I first started I was heating too much and being impatient, but after the sights were on I eventually got the hang of it. Alright, the next day the epoxy was dry, and that allowed me to get rid of the extra wood and inlet that ebony to receive the barrel. If I had this to do again, I would have added that ebony before I rounded the stock.
No, you'll have to find the elevators yourself.
Or maybe the one with the extra stale Danish for breakfast.
Alright, with the forend cap finally inletted, it's time to round that cap. I wanted a round cap, which meant that I did the same thing again, divided in half and then quarters each side, and then started connecting the lines.
They're after at BP and Amoco stations. Redeem cash back for statement credits, gift cards, or travel. See the rewards program terms and conditions for full details.
Alright, this wasn't perfect, but it was good, and I liked it. Alright, where the stripper clip post was, I had left some metal still after I cut it off. I wanted to get that off of there and then round that section. Alright, I can show you how I formed these sights, but I can't show you the other part. Essentially, all you do is you put a piece of sandpaper right at the location where you want these sights, and then move it back and forth, and it'll form to the shape of that barrel, removing anything extra. This at least shows part of it. I used a torpedo level to level my chamber, and then level the sight, and then soldered it on. But then you run out of SD card. Alright, here's an overview of the rifle after it was done. What you see is bluing on there, and I did that to make sure I had removed all the solder from around the base of these sights. That front sight has a fiber optic. Of course, there's the barrel band, there's the forend cap, and then there's the rear sight with the express sights. You can see I've got a standard 50 to 100 and then the flip up for a longer distance. Those are still need to be regulated. And then there's the rest of the rifle. I'm toying around with trying to learn how to engrave. That's what you see. And then of course I'm also toying around with the checkering that I'm going to put on this. There's the base for the rifle sling. Also didn't get that because of losing my storage. Again, I tightened up some of the fit and finish of that forend. Alright, that wraps it up. Sorry I lost the footage from the other video, but next time we come back I'll end up explaining how I picked the height of these sights, and then also go out and probably regulate these sights, and then I'll blue that barrel and finish the stock. That should be the next video. It's going to be about 2 weeks. If you like, go ahead and subscribe. Otherwise, be still and downwind.